Ethan Walker lived in the quiet hills of rural Kentucky, where life was simple but hard. At 13, he didn't have much, just a small bedroom shared with his younger brother, hand-me-down clothes, and a pair of old running shoes 2 sizes too small. But what he lacked in material things, he made up for in heart. Every morning before school, Ethan ran along the gravel roads, weaving between cornfields and cow pastures. He didn't know much about professional athletics, just that when he ran, he felt free. His parents worked tirelessly, his dad at a steel mill, his mom cleaning offices at night. No one in town really talked about college, let alone sports scholarships. But Ethan dreamed anyway. At school, he was the fastest kid in his grade, always winning races at gym class and field day. His teachers noticed, but there were no real programs to help him grow. Still, he ran. After chores, before dinner, and sometimes in the rain. Neighbors started calling him the runner. To Ethan, it wasn't about being famous. It was about becoming something more than where he came from. He didn't know how he'd do it, but he knew he'd never stop running. When Ethan found out that his school had canceled the track program due to budget cuts, he was devastated. It felt like the world was working against him. With no team, no coach, and no access to a proper track, his dreams seemed to slip further away. But Ethan wasn't ready to give up. He started waking up earlier, lacing up his battered sneakers, and training on the dusty roads near his home. He mapped out his own courses, timed his runs with an old watch, and studied videos of Olympic runners online. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. One afternoon, while running laps around the high school parking lot, he caught the eye of Mr. Delaney, a gruff but kind retired coach who happened to be passing by. Curious, Mr. Delaney approached him and asked about his training. After hearing Ethan's story, the old coach saw something special in the boy's eyes, raw determination. "You've got heart," he said. "I'll help you." That moment changed everything. With a mentor by his side, Ethan felt hope return. The path was still uncertain, but now he had someone to guide him through the darkness. Mr. Delaney entered Ethan into a regional youth track meet 2 states away, the biggest competition Ethan had ever seen. It was held at a sprawling stadium, packed with kids from private academies and well-funded schools. They arrived the day before, and Ethan walked onto the track, awestruck by the bright lights and synthetic surface. It was a world away from the gravel roads of Kentucky. On race day, he was nervous but focused. As he warmed up, disaster struck. He twisted his ankle during a stretch and crumpled to the ground. Mr. Delaney insisted they withdraw, but Ethan shook his head. "I've trained too hard for this," he said through gritted teeth. He limped to the start line, ignoring the whispers around him. When the gun fired, he ran, not his fastest, not his smoothest, but with everything he had. He didn't win. He finished last, but the crowd stood and clapped. A scout from a California sports academy was watching and made a note. "Grit. Relentless." After the race, the scout approached Mr. Delaney. "That boy has something you can't coach," he said. Ethan didn't win the medal, but he won something greater, his first shot at something bigger. The scholarship to the elite academy in California came with a mix of excitement and fear. Ethan had never been on a plane, never seen the ocean, never been far from home. At the academy, everything felt different. The other athletes wore expensive gear and talked about international competitions. Ethan arrived with one suitcase and a pair of taped-up shoes. He felt out of place, like he didn't belong. During his first practice, he came in dead last. Some students laughed. "Country boy can't keep up," they muttered. The pressure to prove himself was suffocating. But Ethan didn't complain. He trained harder. Early mornings, extra laps. He stayed up late reviewing running techniques, improving his form and strength. Mr. Delaney called him once a week, reminding him why he started. "Don't let them decide your worth," he said. Slowly, Ethan improved. He began placing higher in training heats. One day, during an inter-academy meet, he beat a top-ranked runner. That day, people stopped underestimating him. The outsider was beginning to make waves. Ethan still missed home, but he was growing, not just as a runner, but as a young man learning to rise under pressure. That Ethan's rise wasn't without setbacks. Months into training for the national youth qualifiers, Ethan was considered a contender. The media hyped his underdog story. For the first time, pressure became his enemy. He couldn't sleep. He trained too hard, ignored minor injuries, and pushed past exhaustion. On race day, with thousands watching, his legs felt heavy, his focus blurred. At the starting line, he froze. When the race began, he stumbled off the blocks and never recovered. He finished dead last. The headlines flipped. Washed up at 16, sponsors pulled away. Teammates stopped talking. For the first time, Ethan truly questioned everything. He flew home in silence. His house was just as he left it, quiet and small. His father, never one to speak much, simply said, "You didn't lose. You just stopped long enough to remember why you started." That night, Ethan put his running shoes back on and ran under the stars. He remembered the boy on the gravel roads, the one who ran just because he loved it. That boy wasn't gone. He was just waiting to be found again. The next morning, Ethan began rebuilding from scratch. 1 mile at a time. 3 years later, Ethan stood on the track of the U.S. Olympic trials, surrounded by the nation's best. No one laughed at him now. Reporters called him the kid with no quit, and his story had spread across the country. But Ethan wasn't there for fame. He thought of his old school, of Mr. Delaney who had passed away the year before, of his dad still working long shifts, and of every kid training on cracked sidewalks with nothing but a dream. The race began, and Ethan ran with fire in his legs. Not just for gold, but for every moment he almost gave up. He finished in the top 3, securing his spot on Team USA. Tears filled his eyes, not for winning, but for proving that heart could beat privilege. After the Olympics, he started a nonprofit that provided gear, coaching, and hope to young athletes in small towns like his. "You don't have to be born in the spotlight to shine," he often said. Ethan Walker's story wasn't just about talent. It was about grit, humility, and the will to keep moving forward, no matter how many times life tells you to stop.